what it is, what it was, what it shall be, what it won't be, what it can't be, what it never will be. What? This is the Yay or Nay Show with Alex C. This is the sports show for sports fans by a sports fan. Now, I'm doing this on Instagram as well as doing it on Twitchy, so I'm kind of still getting used to this. So sorry about, once again, muffling up the beginning of the show, but hey, it happens sometimes, right? Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that we got to go over. Number one, the Instagram. The official Instagram is Yay or _ Nay Podcast. Again, you can watch our show at Yay or _ Nay Podcast if you're an Instagram user and you prefer to use that versus watching us here on Twitchy. And of course, for the official podcast itself, you can get us anywhere you enjoy your podcasts. Apple, iHeart, Google, everywhere you get your podcast, you can listen to us. All right, but a lot of stuff to go over today. Short amount of time to do it. NBA results. Okay, last night, Hawks and the 76ers. What a game. I am surprised. Hawks won the game last night. I'm shocked again. In Alex C, I was right. C, I was wrong. I did pick the 76ers to win the series. And I knew that there were shortcomings in the 76ers game, but I did think it was going to be enough because of the level of competition they were playing against. I didn't think that much of Atlanta. We're going to get into that here in a minute, but I thought they would make it to the NBA Finals, again, based on the level of competition. I'm sorry, the Eastern Conference Finals. And then, of course, I figured they would lose to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn, again, is the NBA champs. Everybody else is playing for second place. So let's briefly get into the Hawks and what I was talking about a minute ago when I said that I didn't believe that the Hawks were going to be real competition for the 76ers. Again, I know they're coming in hot, made a coaching change, went on a winning streak, and their winning percentage went through the roof once they got the new coach. I get it. I understand it. I appreciate it. I knew they'd make some noise in the playoffs. Did not think they would make this much noise, but they got a lot of fight in them. They don't quit. They've got no quit in them. Trae Young and the boys doing their thing and staying strong. And even when they're down, and they were down big last night against Philadelphia, they come back hard and they play hard and they got the win. But here's the thing about Philadelphia. Again, I'm not going to lie. Again, I'm surprised. I may end up being wrong in my prediction in regards to who was going to win the series. But the big thing is, when you look at Ben Simmons, the fact that he's afraid of the hack-a-shack, he's afraid of shooting free throws, he knows he's not going to make the free throws. That seems to be his Achilles heel, is being afraid of going to the free throw line to have to shoot free throws to ice a game. Now, I understand it, but the thing is this. So the problem with Philadelphia isn't playing quarters 1 through 3. They seem to do that very well, and their problem is closing out. Why? You got your point guard in Ben Simmons who doesn't want the ball because he's afraid of the hack-a-shack, because he's afraid that he's going to miss the free throws and not have the ability to ice the game. And I get it. Problem is, what do? I mean, you're paying this guy $32 million a year. You got him and Joel Embiid getting $30 million plus a year. How do you combat this as the Philadelphia 76ers? Because it's your Achilles heel. It is ultimately your undoing. And again, I knew that this shortcoming in the Philadelphia 76ers existed. I just figured that they were going to have the biggest problem when they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and that's where they would meet the brick wall and get knocked out. But again, looks like I might be wrong. Atlanta getting coached great, playing great, knowing what they got to do, feeling confident because they know, and this is the thing, it's like shark in the water, right? They know that Philadelphia is afraid of having to close the games out because they don't believe they have what it takes to close the game out because they know they cannot make the free throws. That puts a lot of confidence in the Atlanta Hawks corner, and I think that's why they're enjoying the success that they have, and they might pull off this upset and move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. But again, I am surprised. I thought Philadelphia would have enough, but apparently even 20-point leads aren't enough to be able to close out a game against the Atlanta Hawks because they've got too much intensity, too much momentum. We've seen this before. But again, my thing with the Hawks was this. we've seen teams have momentum before, whether it's baseball, whether it's football, whether it's basketball. They peak at the right time. They get into the playoffs. They look hot going into the playoffs, might win a game or two, and then they falter. You find out what their shortcomings are. They got to go back to the drawing board for the next season. And I figured that would have happened to Atlanta. And it is going to happen to Atlanta. The thing is, but even though it's going to happen to Atlanta, looks like it might not happen until they get beat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Because, again, if they end up being the ones who go up against Brooklyn, they're done. It might be a good series. It might be an interesting series, but they're done. Again, unless Brooklyn breaks down in injuries, it's all over. Everybody else is playing for second place. Then you get the Clippers. Yesterday I said, the odds weren't looking good in favor of the Clippers. I did pick the Clippers, and Alex C, I was right, C, I was wrong in regards to winning that series against the Jazz. And I did tell you that even though the odds were looking slimmer without Kawhi Leonard, that I was still going to stay strong with my prediction that the Clippers would be the ones to beat the Jazz and move on to the Western Conference Finals. But even with that being said, Kawhi Leonard being out may have been a blessing. A lot of pressure off the rest of the team, a little more loose feeling in regards to Paul George. Now he could take complete control, which it looks like he did yesterday. He scored, I believe it was 37, and the Clippers won. And it wasn't a convincing win. It's not like they came in and just destroyed them or anything. I mean, it was a very good game, and they had to deal with a lot of onslaughts as the Jazz kept coming back. But I look at it differently from how a lot of people were talking about the game today. I look at it as the Clippers, to me, in my opinion, even after the first quarter and going down by 1 point at the end of the first quarter, I believe that the Clippers were in control of that game all the way through. Again, even going to halftime and being down by 5 points, that's exactly where you want to be when you're the away team and you're dealing with the onslaught of three-pointers that the Jazz were throwing up all night last night. I believe the Clippers were right where they wanted to be. Paul George was able to be a little more free, a little more loose without having to deal with sharing the ball with Kawhi Leonard. And I believe it made it to where he had the ability to take control. And I believe the team, in a way, I don't think they're better without Kawhi Leonard, but I think a lot of the pressure is off Paul George, and you're able to see Paul George play better. And he already was playing better to begin with, but now you're able to see Paul George play even better and more freely because, again, he doesn't have to worry about Kawhi Leonard right now. And it made it to where I think, because from what I saw, it looked like he was having more fun last night. And, of course, the Clippers pulled off the win. And now they get to go home and maybe even close this thing out in Game 6. And we don't know how long it's going to be that Kawhi Leonard's out. We have no idea. But the one thing we do know is that Paul George and the rest of the Clippers have the ability to close this series out and move on and possibly take on the Suns and win even without Kawhi Leonard. And that's irregardless of whether Chris Paul gets to play in that series or not. It's not going to matter. With Chris Paul, without Chris Paul, if the Clippers are indeed the ones to go up against the Suns, I will take the Clippers over the Suns in that series. I say it probably goes 6. Without Chris Paul, maybe 5, but still maybe 6. But that's because, again, and it's a conversation I've had over and over, and I don't want to get back into it necessarily today. I'm sure we'll get back into it in another future episode here really, really soon as the Western Conference Final starts. But that team is really going to be dependent upon Devin Booker. It's not Chris Paul, it's Devin Booker. But again, I don't want to get into that. I've been doing that for the last couple of days. But I don't think they need Chris Paul to do whatever it is the Suns were going to do. And even with Chris Paul, what they were going to do was hit the brick wall, whether they played the Jazz or whether they played the Clippers, unless they just did what the Nuggets and the Lakers did, which is become deprived of players because of injuries. But I don't see either one of those teams going down that badly injury-wise. So I think that the Jazz or the Clippers will surpass the Suns and go to the NBA Finals. Paul George playing freely, a lot more fun. Who knows? Maybe it even makes it to where if Kawhi, in fact, can come back and he doesn't have an ACL tear and he is able to come back, maybe that will make it to where Paul George, because he's been enjoying himself and playing so freely and so loose during this particular series, he'll be able to be that much more instrumental in the games of the Western Conference Finals. Again, presuming they are the ones to get past the Jazz. I did pick them. I do still stand by my pick. But again, statistically speaking, I understand it's going to be a little tougher without Kawhi. But if Paul George continues to play the way that Paul George has been playing, then I don't see why the Clippers would not get past the Jazz and move on to the Western Conference Finals to play against the Suns. Now, couple of things to go over really quickly. I'm trying to decide because so many things came up this morning, and I kind of changed a little bit about what I wanted to talk about today. So I think let's get into a yay or nay with LeBron James. I touched on this a little bit yesterday in regards to LeBron James. So LeBron James yesterday made some remarks, and a lot of people really amped up talking about it today for whatever the reason is. They kind of blew it off yesterday, but they amped up talking about it today in regards to LeBron James mentioning, look, the shorter layoff is why you're seeing all these injuries. It's why a lot of these guys continue to be injured. They didn't have the proper time to heal. And because of that is why you're seeing so many stars out and why you're seeing kind of a topsy-turvy NBA playoffs. I think the general consensus in regards to what LeBron is saying, most people agree. I don't think really too many people disagree with LeBron. The shorter layoff, the condensed schedule, less rest time between games. I believe all that is right. And I even agree it attributes to a lot of the injuries that we're seeing right now with all these players in the NBA. The thing is this, though, with that being said, a lot of people, again, and I'm not one of them because I don't believe I have the right to have an opinion in this particular part of the venue. But, a lot of people are saying that, but there would have been a lot of money lost by players if they didn't start the season when they did. That's the reason why they had to hurry up, get back on the court, figure out the condensed schedule, and get into it. Otherwise, a lot of money was going to be lost. A lot of players were going to lose a lot of money. And let's face it, they all play to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the league is there to make money. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But LeBron is getting a lot of pushback from people because they're saying that by him saying what he's saying, he's basically downing all the people in the Players Association, and he shouldn't do that. He should support the decision that they made. It was a financial reason that all of this was done and executed. And when you've got the NBA as well as the players all looking out for their financial best interests, why not just go with it? It is what it is. But I've been saying this all along, which is another thing too. We're not looking at a season where it's in the norm. Last year, COVID-19 blasted the season. They created the bubble. I think they did a great job in creating the bubble. Everything happened the way it happened. It all played out. LA Lakers are the NBA champions. Fine. But COVID had its thumbprint on it. Some people were out because of COVID. We all know the stories. It made it crazy, a little topsy-turvy. So, there were a lot of things that went on, and it was kind of crazy. But, what are you going to do? It is what it is, right? Now, moving forward to this year, however, COVID still had its thumbprint on the season. Reason being I say that is because, again, you've got a scenario where a condensed season was created. They didn't have as long of an off season as normal. They got right into it. Less rest times between games. So you had some players that did load management. Of course, you have people that complain about that, and they want to see their favorite stars, especially when they're watching their favorite teams play, and all that makes sense. But you got load management. You got players that do it. And again, they do it in normal scenarios, and it was smart on their behalf doing it in this scenario, considering the fact that you have a situation where, they've got less rest time between games. So why wouldn't they take a little load off by taking some games off to make sure that they can heal properly if in fact they had any injuries, or by trying to avoid injuries by making sure they had enough respite between games in order to be able to make sure they didn't, sustain any injuries. And of course, you had a lot of players that didn't necessarily do the load management, and you got a lot of guys that are injured. LeBron's saying that they're injured because of the lack of rest time between the offseason and between the games. And again, nobody disputes it. So the question is, do you agree with LeBron or do you agree with the business decision that was made by the players in the NBA? And I talked to a few people today, and I had some people saying, look, I understand the financial reasons wholeheartedly. I mean, no player is going to want to take a pay cut. If they would have been told they were going to take a pay cut, they would have all complained about that. So why not just get back in there, play the season, do what you got to do, make all the money you can while you can, because, again, you are limited in how long your body has the ability to play at this high of a level in your profession. Okay? So those are the people that are basically naysayers going against LeBron James. For the yaysayers that are on LeBron James' side, I've heard people and talked to people this morning that were saying, look, it doesn't matter on the financial end of it. They could have figured out and should have figured out a way to compensate the players, even though they were going to have money being lost, because you have all these packages that have been given to all these businesses. And I'm sure they could have went to the government and worked something out to where they could have got some kind of compensation so that they would have had the ability to live up to their financial obligations and not lose any money, just like all these other businesses didn't lose any money during COVID because the government basically gave them what they needed in order to survive. And the government's going to want to give the NBA the money it needs in order to make sure that it survives, considering that it's not just an entertainment institution, but it is a huge financial institution. And a lot of these cities that have these NBA franchises make a lot of profit based off these NBA franchises. And that's very true. So what they're saying is, so they shouldn't have risked the health of the players and rushed them back to the court, when what they should have did was go to the government and say, we would like a little help to make sure that we can ensure the health and safety of our players and our product, but at the same time have the financial means to make sure that we don't run into financial situations and not have the ability to meet our obligations. Okay. Also, for the yaysayers that are also on LeBron James' side when he says the comments that he says about, not enough respite between the season and between the games, they're also saying, look, the other part of this is that you can't let finances dictate how you're going to treat your employees, and in this case, the players. You should have figured out a way, even if it's not government money, you should have figured out another way to make up that money, maybe do something in upcoming seasons. And bottom line is nothing's more important than your players' health when this whole conversation during this whole time of COVID has been about players' health. So there had to be another way you could have figured it out without putting the players in harm's way by making them take a shorter vacation between seasons, let alone smaller respites between games, because you're playing a condensed season to squeeze it in and hurry up and squeeze it in. And they shouldn't have did that. So again, not necessarily anybody who's offering any kind of solutions, but they do bring a different point of view where, again, because what did companies do? Regular companies were letting their employees work from home, right? And then they were laying some people off, yet they were meeting their financial obligations and still keeping their companies going, revenue coming in, and the government was helping out the people that got laid off. Now, you wouldn't have had NBA players get laid off, but again, if the NBA players were going to lose money, then the government could have potentially stepped in, given the NBA the money that they would have needed to make sure that these players didn't lose the money, and they could have worked out a repayment plan or something along that lines. And again, and that's what some people are telling me. There's been a lot of interesting conversation in regards to this whole thing with LeBron James and his remarks, and I don't believe anybody has any bad ideas. I believe all ideas are good. At some point, there's always a compromise in anything you discuss. And I think that a lot of people have some good ideas in regards to what could have took place. But I think universally, a lot of people say it was not a good idea for them to rush the players back onto the court. That it was a bad idea, and that it made it to where, they understand and sympathize with the players in regards to them saying that they shouldn't have been rushed back to the court. And that's why you're seeing all these injuries, because they were rushed back to the court, and you've got a shorter condensed season. So LeBron James getting a lot of support, again, but he's also getting some pushback, again, from people, but again, you got to look at where these people are coming from. Some of the people that are saying that LeBron James shouldn't have said anything, might be because they're at one of the sports networks, and they would have lost a lot of money too if the basketball season didn't start when they wanted it to start. and if they didn't have the playoffs and things of that nature. So a lot of people were losing money. Everybody was bleeding money. You had, sports networks bleeding money. You had the NBA bleeding money. And since we're specifically talking about the NBA, we'll stick with that. But you had the NBA bleeding a lot of money. And so, obviously something had to be done. But did it have to be done at the expense of the players is what some people are saying that are supporting LeBron James. On the other side, the other people are saying, look, suck it up. Everybody's going through the same thing. All the players are on the same schedule. All the players are playing the same condensed season. So you have some players that are injured, yes, but injuries are part of the game, and you don't have anything to prove that because of the condensed schedule and because of the shortened offseason, this is the reason why these players have these injuries. Those are the people that are pushing back against LeBron James. And another one of the arguments that they're making is, again, because they don't think that LeBron or anybody has any proof that the shorter offseason or the condensed season is a reason why any of the players, in fact, were injured. So that's just some of the things being said in regards to the yay or nay, in regards to LeBron James and the comments that he made. I just thought I'd bring it up. I thought it was an interesting conversation. I did talk to a lot of people again today, and I just thought, definitely want to have this conversation now that I've talked to enough people and let everybody know in regards to what I'm hearing. I also heard a bunch of stuff on sports radio. I thought they all had great points, to be honest. I thought it was a great conversation that everybody had in regards to it. I don't think anybody said anything that was outlandish or crazy. They all, and in this instance, because it's so unique, how can you really say anything that's outlandish in all reality, right? Because this situation is so unique. So I thought that it was a great conversation, and I just wanted to share that with you in regards to what I heard, and I wanted to put that out there as a yay or nay, and I'm going to throw that out there up on the Twitter page at Yay or Nay Podcast, the address of the Twitter page. Do you support LeBron James and the remarks he made about the shortened offseason? So I'm going to put that up on the Twitter page, and I'll read back your results on Sunday because, again, tomorrow and Saturday, we are off. We'll be back on Sunday because we're doing the shows Sunday through Thursday, taking off Friday and Saturday because on Friday and Saturday, I'm focusing on the radio shows that I have. So I will be back on Sunday with the results to that question. And again, the address to the Twitter page at Yay or Nay Podcast. Another thing I want to talk about is you always hear me a lot talking about how some of these guys say things and it seems like they're scripted or they're being told maybe by their radio stations or their networks what they need to say, what the whole conversation needs to entail, what side they need to take. It just seems a little bit like it's, kind of a universal thing that all these guys are being told kind of what they have to say. They're given guidelines. You've got to stay within these parameters because they say a lot of things and it's like, okay. But then you think about it and it's like, well, they're not the only ones. You go to another station, they're kind of saying the same thing. And you go to another station and they're kind of saying the same thing. So everybody's kind of saying the same thing. And it just makes me wonder if they're all being told what they got to do. Now, I've been working radio since I was 18 years old, so I happen to know a lot about radio. And I know that there are certain things that you do and don't do and you can and cannot do. But none of them really, unless you're working at a political station, none of them really give you any guidelines in regards to how you have to feel about any certain topic. Meaning, if you like one political party or you like another political party and you work on a music intensified radio station, you have the ability and the right to be able to say whatever you want to say. You don't get told by anybody what you should and should not say. Now, you might get listeners that complain. You might get, certain people in the office that might complain, but they're not going to base your employment on your identity as far as politics go or things of that nature. They would prefer you steer away from it if at all possible, especially considering how hot it is in the climate today with politics, religion, and things of that nature. But if you state it, they're not going to base your future employment on what your beliefs are. Most radio stations are that way. Again, obviously you have news stations and things of that nature where you are told what to do. But we're talking specifically about music right now because now I want to shift it over to sports because, again, I believe they're given narratives and told what they can and cannot say and can and cannot do. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Charles Barkley, he's only going to do 2 more years doing his show on TV, and then he's done. And the reason why he says he's only going to do 2 more years and then he's done is because of the cancel culture and because of management in regards to where he works. Again, noticing how I'm avoiding saying any call letters or anything of that nature because I'm not looking to get any arguments or Twitter battles or anything like that going on. But Charles Barkley is going to do 2 years and then he's going to leave. And it's because the cancel culture, and you are now getting told what you can and cannot say. Now, again, in the political world, I understand it. In the music world, for the most part, you're not told what to say or what to do, or you're not given any guidelines like that whatsoever. In the sports world, I always thought that you were free to say whatever you wanted opinion-wise about a team, a manager, or owner, or whatever the case may be. Apparently, as I've been making these comments over the last little bit that I've been doing this podcast, and I've been doing that blindly, to be honest. I never really knew or had any inside information in regards to anybody really truly being told what their narrative needed to be. But now that I'm listening to Charles Barkley talk about he's going to do 2 more years and he's out because he's getting told what his narrative needs to be, now it kind of confirms all the stuff that I've been saying this whole time. So I'm not saying it to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I'm just saying sometimes common sense is right in front of you and you just know what it is. And as long as you got the courage to blurt it out, a lot of times, more often than not, you're going to find that you're right. And in this instance, I think, I'm not saying for sure, I think that I'm finding that I am right. These sports networks are giving the narrative to these guys and telling them how they got to be, what they got to say, what they got to do, who they got to root for, who they cannot insult, and so on and so forth, because you have probably 2 different types of cancel cultures, in my opinion. You got the ones that, again, that are going to be the fans that are going to get upset, but that's just part of the game. Fans get upset about everything. That's why we're fans. We're fanatics. We're fanatical about everything. We get upset about everything negative you say against our favorite team. That's just the nature of the beast. But the other set of cancel culture I believe we're discussing is upper management and advertisers. And advertisers are always afraid of controversy. You've seen how a lot of advertisers buckle real quickly as soon as they get any blowback about anything. I don't want to get into any examples or details or anything like that because I'm not looking for any blowback in regards to that as well. But I'm sure you've seen a lot of advertisers buckle because they said something originally, or maybe a CEO said something originally, and then he gets blowback and immediately he walks the comment back. Or you might even see that company fire the CEO immediately because he said what he said. And I think the same thing is happening in the sports world, and that's why you're seeing Charles Barkley say, 2 more years, I'm done, I'm out, I got no more. And I believe that's what I'm seeing. And that's part of the reason why I created this show. I created this show for the purpose of this is a yay or nay. Both sides of any story will be told. If, and I do finally have some guests lined up, and I'm going to be doing them next week, if I got a guest, and they go yay on a topic, I'm going to go nay, irregardless of what my personal thoughts are. If they go nay, I'm going to go yay again, irregardless of what my personal thoughts are. I'm going to make sure that people get a full perspective of the story. Even now, when I tell the story, I'm telling you stories about this person said this person said that. So you get both sides of the story, and then you can determine what you do or do not believe, or what you do or do not like. That's up to you. My job is just to put the story out there, to have some fun with it, put the story out there, but make sure you get both sides of the story, not the slant that somebody else might want me to put out there, because that's the hole that exists in the market. And that's where I believe I come in, because I have the ability to fill that void, because I'm not going to give you a narrative. I'm giving you both sides of every story that I could possibly discuss. So again, make sure that you add us on Instagram, yay_nay podcast. Make sure you go answer, and there's going to be quite a few of them, the new yay or nay questions up on the Twitter page at yay or nay podcast, the address to the Twitter page, a bunch of new stories up on our Facebook at yay or nay podcast, the address to the Facebook page. A lot of great games this weekend. I will talk to you on Sunday. We'll talk more about those games. I still want to talk about the state of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Just didn't have time to do it today. And there are a couple of other things that I wanted to talk about that I didn't get a chance to talk about today. But again, for sure, because I know I've been talking about it for a couple of days, saying I'm going to do it, and I haven't done it. So on Sunday, without a doubt, no matter what happens, we're going to talk about the state of the Arizona Diamondbacks. You guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you on Sunday.